Do you think one mind is better than many? Neither do we. A University of Chicago Booth School of Business MBA is for curious and collaborative people who value different perspectives and ideas. Chicago Booth takes pride in empowering and being empowered by women of diverse backgrounds. We believe that fostering an inclusive community creates an environment of analytical, open minded inquiry and produces knowledge with enduring impact. Learn more today at chicagobooth.edu/elevate. Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Ellevate podcast. I'm your host, Megan. So excited to have you here with me this week. I know last week I mentioned we were a little light on the events because we were kind of in that post-summer haze and all that craziness to give you some time to recover, but we have plenty of them coming up this week. Let's go through them. We have our Ellevate Roundtable on Thursday, which is going to be all about setting yourself up for a successful negotiation. I ran a poll on our LinkedIn about a month or so ago, and it turns out that negotiating and getting a raise, getting a promotion was the top thing that our audience was looking for. So this is the perfect place if you are also struggling with negotiation. Be sure to check that out. Our entrepreneurs are going to be having a roundtable about how to leverage your Ellevate membership to grow your business, which I think is so cool. And then our Women Seeking Confidence Roundtable is going to be meeting next Tuesday. They always cover a wide variety of topics, all related to confidence. I haven't had a chance to go to it in a while, but I used to be a regular at this roundtable. I adore it. And I'm going to try to get going back to it soon because I love this roundtable so much. We also have a few community circles coming up. We have our professionals in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging on a Wednesday. That's today. And our remote and hybrid professionals next Tuesday. And as for in-person events, we've got a few of them coming up. We have our Austin chapter is hosting their monthly happy hour, all about what's personal branding got to do with it. That's going to be on Thursday. Our Los Angeles chapter is hosting their in-person happy hour at Serendipity Labs, DTLA. That's going to be on Thursday. Our Northern New Jersey chapter is hosting their in-person monthly coffee and conversations chat at the Book House, where you can do yourself a favor. So cool. I love it. That's going to be on Friday. Seattle is hosting their September coffee meetup. That's going to be next Tuesday. And Philadelphia is hosting their Breakfast in the Burbs at Founding Farmers next Tuesday. And with that, let's get to our interview today. Like I said last week when I was previewing her, if you haven't heard of her yet, you should be following her. You should be paying attention. She's incredible. This week's interview is one of Maricella's, and it is with Minda Harts. She is an author, public speaker, podcaster, and workplace consultant. She's written 3 best-selling and award-winning books called The Memo, Right Within, and You Are More Than Magic. Just amazing. Let's just get to the interview now because I'm a huge fan.
Hey everyone, I am here today with Minda Harts, who is someone I very, very, very much suggest you follow on LinkedIn if you don't, because she is doing some amazing work. I've known Minda for a bit now, and I was just saying we get to catch up while you listen. Minda, how are you?
I am so good. I'm smiling over here as we get to catch up with just some of our friends listening. So I love it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. We met back a while ago. You were writing and you were supporting Ellevate quite a bit, and then God, I mean, so many things have happened since then, books and such.
Yes.
But how about we start with you telling our friends here a little bit about yourself and what led you to the work you're doing?
Yes, we have known each other for a while, and it's been fun to grow together in many ways in this space. And so for me, it's funny, I look at my life just 4 or 5 years ago, and it looked different than it does today. And so I would encourage everybody to, not just look at where you are, but where you can go and the impact that you can make in a short amount of time. And so for me, I spent 15 years in corporate and nonprofit roles, and I was always the only. For those
Mm.
who've been the only of anything, you know how isolating that can be at times. And, I settled into that, Maricela. I settled into the bias. I settled into, not seeing myself in the ways that I needed to and not advocating for myself at certain times. because I was the only, so I kind of settled into a lot of different things. And then it came maybe about year 12 of my career, I said, you know what? I deserve the same humanity, dignity, equity, and respect that my counterparts receive. And I deserve a workplace in which, um, as a woman of color, as a Black woman, that I can thrive and not just survive. And if I'm feeling this way, maybe there are others who are feeling this way too. And so I set out to make the workplace better than I found it, centering the experiences of women of color in the workplace. And I created a company called the Memo, and then later, my first book, titled the same, the Memo. And since then, I've had the pleasure of writing two additional books, and now I have the pleasure of being a workplace consultant, helping again make the workplace better than I found it.
And you are really making the workplace better than you found it. I can say that. I think that the how you're centering the experience of women of color is such an important conversation because you're right. Being the only is so lonely. And 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 it's funny because we're all alone. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we're all going through this loneliness without looking at each other. And I want to repeat the phrase you said at the beginning, which is you settled into the bias. How many of us do that? And I don't know. Like, do you have like why? Like why? Do you have any thoughts on as to why and how kind of we can shake that off?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you do, I mean, each of us enter into the workplace and we're excited about that if it's your first job, your fifth job, your 20th job, and you enter thinking, okay, I want to make my mark, I want to climb the ladder, and then sometimes when you get into these environments, you realize, wow, there's some forces, aka office politics, that I wasn't privy to, or that there's more people who don't identify similarly or like I do,
Mhm.
and you just start to try to figure out how do I assimilate? How do I fit in? And because you're working so hard to try to fit in, try to belong, at the expense of your own well-being, you accept certain behaviors and you start to normalize them along the way.
Mm,
So, being called the wrong person of color or people not pronouncing your name
mhm,
correctly or getting looked over for those promotions because they think you're to this or to that. And you just start to say, oh, I guess this is the way the workplace works for people who look like me or people who identify with me. And so you just, put the seatbelt on. You're like, okay, well, this must be how it is. So let me adapt to it. And you don't realize how that um, really hurts your self-esteem and your confidence as you are trying to build a career around people who are not seeing your value and worth, and eventually that starts to make you question your own.
the screwed up thing is that is how it works, though.
Hmm.
Like, I know I'm being very cynical, but it's not made for people like us.
No, so when we talk about this seat at the table phenomenon or climbing the ladder and the broken rungs, it's like, okay, well, how do you climb a ladder that has no rungs for you? You know,
Right.
it's like it's really hard, right?
Like,
And many
it's
of
like
us, we try really hard, but we have bruised hands along the way. We're like, okay, well, maybe I'll just settle here on this fifth rung because it just seems too heavy of a load to carry, right?
right. It's like you're climbing up a fire pole instead of, like, sliding down.
Right.
But it takes people like you. It takes people who are doing this work, and the most screwed up thing is that it is always on the shoulders of the others.
Hmm.
It's always like that. So how do we what can we do? Because I do I'm having a day, as you can probably tell, of cynicism. I actually talked to someone, Leah V. She's fantastic. She's a fat black Muslim model and activist. And talking today to her, and she was like, "I'm tired. Like I'm tired. We're all the time trying to change things, and the world is not changing."
Hmm. Hmm.
So, in our tiredness, tell us a little bit about kind of what can we do?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real thing, right? Two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
We want change to occur, but we don't want to have to be the only ones making the change. And it is sad that many of us who are feeling marginalized in the workplace, because we are, then we are tasked to have to come up with the solutions, tell you how to do it, and all these different things. And I mean, that's a lot. And I think a lot of, you know, women of color, people on the margins, anybody that identifies, over 50, trans, however you might
Mhm.
identify, like, it becomes a lot to be the teacher at every turn while you're still
Right.
trying to heal yourself from all of the workplace inequalities. And so the one thing that I would offer and invite our friends to consider is something that helped me, and it continues to help me when I get tired, is I think that I have two choices, and those two choices are either courage or caution. And I often think,
Mm.
how many people will benefit if I'm courageous in this moment, but nobody benefits when I'm cautious. Meaning, one definition of courage is the ability to do something that frightens one. And I think about all the women that came before me, that I know their names, don't know their names, but I'm a beneficiary of their courage. Women who fought for us to be able to vote, women who fought for us to have the roles that are past clerical work. I mean, clerical work is great. My first job was as an admin, but that we could climb
Mhm.
the ladder in so many different ways, right? That we could hold Senate seats, that we can be looked at as more than just somebody's housewife, right? That we have
Right.
choices. And I think about all the courage that it took for women to make a stand, however way they wanted to live their life. And I'm a beneficiary of that. So when I think about the workplace, I ask myself every day, who's going to be a beneficiary of my courage? Who's going to be a beneficiary if I show up in this way? So many women will benefit from this. And so I would encourage all of our listeners and our allies and our managers to think about it. Who will benefit from your courageous act? Right, from seeing someone, from the policy changes, and those things benefit generations beyond our wildest dreams. And so the part that energizes me is knowing that I get a choice in this, and a choice to build a much better workplace than just letting it. I just want the next generation to inherit better than we did.
And I am absolutely going to put courage or cautious right in front of my desk because I think it's a very good way of thinking about it. It's
Hmm.
not just for us.
Right.
How are you hearing these conversations? Are they because you do work with, I know you work with individuals, but you also work with companies. What are with companies are you receiving? How are these conversations being received, particularly currently where there's so much economic uncertainty?
Yeah, that is a real thing. I mean, you and I both could have a sidebar conversation of how important this work was last year, and now
Right.
it's been put on the. I don't even know if it's on the stove. I was gonna say it's been put on the back burner, but I don't even know that it's on the stove right now.
It's on ice.
It's in the freezer right now. So I am seeing this kind of backpedaling, if you will, in terms of understanding that equity is still important in the workplace, but let's just get back to normal, and let's just figure this thing out and put a pause on some of these other things. And it really is disheartening when you think about it, because what we're eroding is not DEI per se. What we're eroding
Mhm.
is trust in humanity, right? So when you don't do what you say you're going to do, when you don't see this as, or you don't fund your ERGs anymore because we can't do that right now. Equity cannot be optional; it has to be mandatory. And so when I see these certain things, I'm like, oh, so you're just gonna go backwards instead of going forward, and this is already a marathon race, so
Mhm.
we can't afford to put anything on ice right now. So I am seeing a lot of companies who were well intentioned over the last 3-4 years, and now they're putting a pause on things. And I'm really worried about that, because your talent is still your talent, right? And they didn't change overnight. Their needs didn't change overnight. And so I am seeing a lot of that. But I will say the optimistic part of it, there are companies who are still committed to this, and I believe those are the companies that win at the end of the day. Those that realize, okay, yeah, we do have some economic hardships, but we cannot swap equity out for anything else, because this is has to be a core pillar. And I am working with some really great companies that are
That's good.
still investing in their talent, and that's what this is, an investment in talent.
And it's true, right? Like it's not it can't be oh, it's sunny outside, so let's talk about equity. It has to be ingrained. It has to be constant because like you said, it is investment in talent, it is investment in people, which at the end of the day is what's going to drive anything. I was reading an article on Harvard Business Review a while ago that was saying we have to stop talking about the business case for diversity. And I found it interesting because it's kind of what you're talking about here, which is it has to be more than the business case. Sure, the business case can exist, but it has to be more.
Hmm.
There has to be something that's deeper than that. And it even said that it is for minorities and the people that are considered, kind of the diversity within the company. Um, it is actually counterproductive because when you think that you're there just because they're saying, "Oh, let me bring this person in because, sure, it'll drive our profits," but then you're squashed and not even be able to say what you think. It's such a vicious cycle.
Hmm.
So it is a change in the narrative of why equity and why it's important. And I'm glad to hear that you are working with companies that are definitely investing in their talent.
Yes, because if our talent isn't happy, if our talent isn't safe, then productivity, it's going to harm productivity, right? Or
Right.
and so I think that companies, they just can't afford, especially now. I know that there's a lot of layoffs taking place, but actually there's a statistic. I wish that I could remember where I heard it from, but or read it from. But they said right now is like the biggest time in our lives where there's more jobs available than in like the last 20 to 30 years. And so that lets me know that if I have options, right, as an employee,
Mm,
that I don't have to just settle for anything, even in this, kind of weird, recession type period. There's still a lot more accessibility to jobs than ever before, and so we have to remind ourselves as individuals that we are the asset. Like let us not forget
mhm.
that we are the asset and that we do have options and choices.
We are the assets.
We are. You can't get work done without me. You
True.
know?
True. Even if you have, Chat GPT, someone has to type it in.
Somebody has to tell them what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, for now anyway, right?
And so when you started the memo and when you came up with the book, part I always remember the seat at the table, right?
Mhm,
Like that phrase that has been around for a really long time. And I remember you, and I think we talked about this probably in this podcast years ago, where it's a little bit about like kind of pulling your seat to the table
mhm,
when there is no seat and
right.
making room. How do you prepare for that?
Yeah, when we did have this conversation, a similar one years ago, I often thought about the Shirley Chisholm, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a
Uh huh.
folding chair. And now I'm in kind of the mindset of, we deserve to have this seat at the table, so I'm not going to fight you on this. I'm not going to like, it's like either it's a mindset shift, right? So now I'm like, I belong at every table I'm at, but maybe not every table deserves to have me, right? So I'm not going to force myself into this space because there is a seat or there is a table that I'm going to build. But I think as women in particular and women of color, we have to also remind ourselves of our reason why and our worth,
Mm,
right? And so I'm at the space now that I'm not going to convince you of the business case. I'm not going to convince you that you should have a more diverse population working here because it's good for business. Like because basic stuff, right? That's like
Right.
diversity
Right.
101. If that's what you still want to talk about, then I'm never going to be successful here. And I'm not going to try to
Yes.
squeeze a chair into this crazy table right here, because I'm going to have more issues than I know what to do with. And I think now we can broaden the conversation more to say, is this the right table for me? Right. And that's how we prepare
Right.
for it, with the skill set, with
Ooh.
the leveling up and those sorts of things. And for me, it's just reminding us, okay, is this the right table, and asking ourselves better questions about it so that we can do the best work of our careers.
Ooh, I like it. I like it a lot.
Yes.
Is this the right table for me? For sure. And you will find the right table if this is not it.
Exactly, going back to
Or
that
you
you
can
are the
build your
asset,
table.
or build it, right? I mean, I battled at tables for, 15 years, and then I'm like, "You know what? Let me see what it's like to build my own. At least I'll, like, sweat blood and tears for my own table and see how that works out." Doesn't mean that I, can't go back to someone else's table later, but,
Right.
it's reminding myself that I have options, and sometimes we're in these situations where we feel hopeless and helpless, that we don't have any more options.
Yeah. And it is, again, it comes back to, it is for leaders within companies to start these conversations where you can build a space for people, where you can make it as welcoming and as inclusive for people to thrive there. Because yes, I mean, we talk about building a table, but like you said, you are you do sweat, you know, you do shed blood, you do shed blood, sweat, and tears when you're
Mhm.
building your own thing, and it's not for everyone.
No, it is not. It's not.
Talk to me about uh the right within.
Yes, I'm glad you asked. For those who, I might be aging myself here just a little bit, but there was a popular song by a singer named Lauryn Hill, and she said, eh, "How you gonna win if you ain't right within?" And it was the impetus for me writing my second book, Right Within, because I realized that we can. I can't control if my colleagues go to the unconscious bias training class or not. I can't
Mhm.
control if they hire diverse staff or not, or promote me, but I can control how I see myself. I can control how I heal from all the inequality that I've been exposed to in my career, right? I can heal from that, and I can say, let me take a closer look at this, because when I was normalizing the bad behavior in the workplace, I didn't
Mhm.
realize how much of myself I was sacrificing, how much of myself I no longer knew anymore, right? I lost those pieces of myself that were once so strong, that were once so happy to be in the workplace. And I made a lot of decisions, like many of us, again, who are the only ones. We might have changed our government name to make it more, you know, sound easier for our colleagues to pronounce or to fit in.
Mhm.
And we make so many concessions sometimes as the onlys or as women. And I just wanted us to say, let's focus on us. What does healing look like for us? What does repairing and bouncing back from, and not holding on to all this toxicity that we've been exposed to? So I really wanted to center the conversation on our well-being.
I love that because it's such an important conversation. And the way you're talking about it is about making yourself whole again
Yes.
in a way.
Hmm.
And we forget how much we've given up. Whether it's like you said, your name, I mean, I know that, to your like your hair. I mean,
Hmm.
so many things.
So many things.
And 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 the way you're talking about it and what you're saying, I mean, it is trauma.
Hmm.
How can you heal though? Like how do you bring that into the workplace? Because I feel like we sometimes shy away from it, rightly so, because that's kind of what we've been conditioned. But how do you make yourself whole?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because, for so long in my career, I was like, oh, well, I normalized everything. So I didn't realize
Mhm.
how much I had lost, how much I had given away, because I thought that's what I had to do. And then when it was time to kind of focus on who is Minda, like in the workplace, they'll say, bring your authentic self to work. And I'm like, I don't know who that
What
is.
is that?
Who is that anymore? Because I've been asked to shed so many pieces of myself
Mhm.
to fit in, that I don't know who that is. And then I realized, wow, I need some healing, right? Because maybe I had
Mm.
a bad experience in one environment, and I found this new table that sees me and wants me to be successful, but because I'm hanging on to all the baggage from the last place, I can't even enjoy it because I see it as the same as I left it, right? So there's a lot of healing that has to take place. And I say and write within that healing is a choice, but healing has to be
Mm.
a lifestyle, right? So how I communicate in the workplace, how I articulate my needs, values, and concerns, I have to show up for me. I can only control how I show up. I can't control how the other person shows up. I knew that I needed therapy as part of a tool in my toolkit, right? So that I
Ah,
can unpack some of
yes.
these things. And again, I think I use the word trauma in the book because I want people to understand how serious it is. It's
Hmm.
one of those relationships that we will be in for almost our whole lives, right? And in some way, shape, or form, we're working. So why wouldn't we want to bring our most healthiest self to work? Because if I bring my healthiest self, then I can do my best work and you'll get the authentic pieces that I want you to have.
And kind of coming full circle, bringing your whole self, going through this work, because it is work
Mhm.
to heal from all this. And I'm also a huge fan of therapy. Um, Again, going full circle, it's courage.
Mhm. Everything is rooted in courage, courage to show up for ourselves, courage to choose ourselves, right? And that takes a lot. Again, we have two choices. We can be courageous or we can be cautious. But even if I choose healing tools, if I choose conflict resolution tools, I choose the things that I know I need to be successful in the workplace, then you know what? The people who love me the most get the best version of me, right? Because I often used to joke around and
Mm.
say, oh, I was never the angry Black woman in the workplace, but ooh, did I get home and maybe turn up, or be upset? Like my family might not have got the best version because I've been in this stressful environment all day long. So the healing is not just for us, it's for the ecosystem.
So good. Because you're saying that. And honestly, last night, I was walking with a friend and I was saying, I was with a friend of mine and she had said something that, let's say it as it is, was racist. And
Hmm.
I called her out on it. And she kind of started, and this was a few days ago, and I was telling my other friend about it. And so I called her out on it and she started pushing back. So I was pushing back because no, it's not right. And at some point, I was just like, I just need to leave. I need to walk away.
Hmm.
And my friend that I was telling this to is like, you do realize that you work doing that all day. So it is no wonder that when it comes to some people that you're close to, the you that shows up is a little bit different
Hmm.
because you might be so tired or because you might be kind of internalizing and pulling whatever it is from your day of work. And like you're saying, you were not that person at work and then show up at home in a very different way.
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. Just made me think about it and I think, you know, it's a hard fight to fight.
It is, but our mental health is the most important thing because we're not going to be able to do our best work. The people who love us the most, they're not going to get the best of us. But most importantly, our future self is counting on us to be the
Mm.
best version of ourselves, to be the healthiest version of ourselves. And once we look at it from that perspective, we realize that there's this book from the 1970s called Salt Eaters, and it's uh, a fiction book. And but there's a line in the book that always stands with me, and it one character asks another character, "Sweetheart, do you really want to be well?" And that part
Mm.
always like hits me in a different kind of way because do we really want to be well? Do we really want to be healthy? And it's not just eating; it's the places that we work at, it's the assignments that we take, the promotions that we go after, the no's, the boundaries that we create in the workplace, and all of that is tied to our well-being, to our being right within.
Wow, that hit me. It's also the people you're around and the tables you're sitting at, right?
Yes, all of it. It's interconnected.
Yeah, that hit me. Um, so through this work, because you've been doing it for a while, and you know, have done a lot also in a short period, relatively short period of time, because 3 books, like, you are busy. What is there something that surprised you more than anything else?
Hmm. Yes, because so what a lot of people who may not know, but you've heard my story before, so but in 2014, I sat in my car and I cried because I was
Mhm.
just frustrated in the workplace and I couldn't quit, and all the things just seemed to be piling down on me. And I remember sitting in the car, and that's where the word courage, and I've held on to this word ever since. Who's going to benefit from my courage? And when I started to talk about my experiences in the workplace as a Black woman, as a woman of color, I was nervous because we weren't talking about these things out loud
Mhm.
in the ways that we're able to talk about it now. It's a privilege to be able to talk about it in these ways, but it wasn't popular then. It wasn't popular for a very long time, and I worried what that would do, like what to me, kind of putting myself out there. I'm very much an introvert for people who don't who know me, and so I was really nervous about what it would be to kind of have these conversations in the ways in which we're having them. And then I realized that I wasn't alone, that these weren't isolated situations, that my story was her story, was other people's
Mm.
stories. And I think that surprised me the most because for so long, many of us have just been suffering in silence. And I think what surprised me the most was that my voice was tied to somebody else's freedom. And so going back to courage, right? We have to do the thing, we have to say the thing because somebody else is counting on us for that so that they can get to where they need to be as well. And so again, it's not just about all my horrible experiences in the workplace, but now it's allowing for a I'd like to say that I've been part of change, right? I've been part of something that's changed. And again, I haven't been doing this for a very long time. So if you think about if I've done what I've done in 5 years, what could we all do together in the next year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years to really create change? And so, I hope people sometimes we think we have to do the grand act, but it's those small acts of courage that really go a long way.
I had to write this down. My voice was tied to somebody else's freedom. That is so powerful.
Thank you.
And it's true, I think of your work and I think to me you've been doing this forever in my mind because you've
My
done
body
so
feels
much.
that way. My body feels that way.
But because you've done so much, and I have to say a thank you for putting your voice out there and for having these conversations for the last 5 years because you're right. We weren't talking about it. And I am sure there are many women who see themselves reflected in the work you're doing and who see themselves in your what you're writing and in your story and in trying to and feel not alone because of
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for
it. So,
seeing me. I appreciate you more than you know.
mm. So we've talked about, kind of those who see themselves reflected or the others or the onlys. What about the people who are not in that group? How do
Yeah.
we bring them into this conversation or what can they do?
Thank you for asking that because, the one thing I love about many things, but that I love about Elevate and the platform is that we have all sorts of people, various walks of life, and this is all of our issue, right?
Right.
Because the reality is we work with people who might be experiencing this. They report to us who might be experiencing this, and so if you are listening from the sideline saying, I didn't realize that this was taking place," here's the thing that we get to do. If you consider yourself an ally, or language that I use, success partner, or just a sponsor, mentor, any just you care about humanity in the workplaces, now that you know that these things are taking place, because again, two things can be true at the same time. We might work at the same
Mhm.
place and may never experience what we're talking about today, but someone, someone that works with you, may be experiencing it every day. So with this new information, how can you remove barriers for people instead of creating more? And so when we realize that each of us has a responsibility to make the workplace better, through education. So I hope you could take something from today and you know read the books, learn about it, so that
Mhm.
we can remove barriers for people and make the workplace safer for every single person. Because This isn't about musical chairs. When we talk about equity, it means everybody gets an opportunity to be successful. And I think at the end of the day, we all just want that.
Uh, I like the term success partner. I really do. I think ally gets thrown out, the term ally gets thrown around a lot without really getting to the heart of it, of you want to be a partner
Hmm.
in someone else's success. So I really like that term you used.
Thank you.
Minda, this has been so good. I'm so happy we got to catch up in front of all of our people.
Listen, next time we'll have to do it over a stronger beverage, but I'm glad that we had this time together. Thank you.
Yeah, we definitely are due for that. Thank you so much for being here. I could not end this without a little lightning round. So it's going to be very lighthearted. Um, just a few questions. Everyone wants to know, does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes, it does.
Yay, you're one of mine. If you could time travel, where is the first place you would go?
I know this sounds crazy, but I would go back to my first manager that tried to make me feel crazy for having orange fingernail polish on because he said black people love bright colors. I would go back and I would stand up for myself in that moment.
Would you go back and just slap him? Because
I,
that's what I would do.
you know what? I think I might. I think I would definitely do something and then quickly revert back to 2023.
Oh, this is how ew. This is why my newsletter on LinkedIn is called Musings from an Emotional Latina. Because if I could travel back in time, I would go to that said person who called me that and be like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, we'd
Um,
rectify it real fast in those moments.
yeah. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I would like to read minds because as a public speaker, people stare at you and look at you and like, I wonder what they're thinking right now. I'd really like to know so that I can like address that right here on stage.
You are much braver than I am because I'd be dead scared.
That would help me be like the
Uh,
better speaker. Be like, I know exactly
uh,
what you're thinking right now.
true, true, true. If your house caught on fire, what's the first object you would run to save?
My dog Boston.
Okay, pets and family not included.
Okay, okay. I would say my tambourine because it's a sense of like spirituality, and it just always reminds me that
Ah,
there's joy on the other side.
I like that. I like that a lot. Um, most used app on your phone.
Directions. I'm always getting lost.
Favorite recent read.
Oh, this is good. Bell Hooks, All About Love.
I read that's a good one. That's a very good one. I yes. I I I double down on that one. That's a very good one. Best piece of advice you've ever been given.
Never be ambivalent about your career.
Hmm, good. And finally, what's one thought you'd want to leave with our listeners?
Who are you willing to be courageous for?
Hmm. I like it. I like the idea of courage and paying it forward for others. Thank you for being here and thank you for being a voice for so many people.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your voice too.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Hope you loved that as much as I did. I'm such a fan of hers. I follow her on LinkedIn. I follow her like everywhere. And I was so excited when we reached out to her and I was like, do you want to be on the podcast? And she was like, yes, absolutely. Let's get into our history makers this week. We have Dr. Joelle Mogerman, became the first woman president and CEO of the Philadelphia Zoo in its 164-year history. Kelly Norris became the first woman Wyoming state forester. Pink became the first woman to headline a stadium concert in Wisconsin ever, which seems insane to me, but it's true. Congratulations, Pink. Shamara Garner became the first woman chief of police for the Houston Independent School District Police Department. Trisha Taylor became the first woman president of the Breakers Palm Beach, and Leslie Hamilton became the first woman to complete the 37-mile swim around Staten Island. Congratulations to all of our amazing history makers, and we will see you back next week for my interview with Neftali Edmond Tefera. She's the Pharmacy Operations Supervisor for MedStar Health. She supports heart-centered professionals in identifying and harnessing their unique leadership power for transformative outcomes in their professional and personal lives. See you then! Ellevate Network drives real results for ambitious women trying to break through the glass ceiling and achieve success in their careers. We offer a platform full of resources and opportunities for growth, all designed to help you unlock your potential. With Ellevate support, you can take the first step toward achieving your professional goals. With a supportive community and tangible resources at your fingertips, you're only one step away from reaching your fullest potential. Join us today and take advantage of our 30-day free trial to start building the career of your dreams. Thanks so much for listening to the Ellevate podcast. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe, give us 5 stars, and share your review. You can learn all about Ellevate membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. Thanks so much, and join us next week.